Good evening and welcome to the Azeroth review, where we discuss all things World of Warcraft and actually these days whatever else. If you're new, just say hi and whatever you want to talk about really. I don't even know. It's quite a bizarre week really, because obviously there's a raid. It's a 2-boss raid, which is great for most people, except I don't know what it must be like. I know Method have sort of already downplayed it a little bit, but I really don't know what it must be like to have a situation where here we are a week at least after it came out in North America, and even the best guilds in the world have just killed one boss. Of course, there are only two, and the second one is a right arsehole. How strange, isn't it? It's strange. I'd really loved... I'm looking for my drink. I'm just going to have to drink from the bottle tonight. I've taken my glass downstairs. I really don't know what it must be like for them. I don't know whether anyone's been watching any interviews or anything like that with them and been commenting on it. It must be very bizarre because they're used to, obviously, a larger raid where you kill... Where, like, the American guilds will kill multiple, like 6 or 7 bosses before the EU even get going. And then, obviously, it slows down at the end, which is fine. Whereas this time, it's like one... I suppose it's still a tough boss. And then, brick wall. The brick wall boss. So, yeah, I don't know. It's all a bit weird. It's all been a bit weird with the old, what do we call it? Boobygate? The people getting banned and then unbanned and God knows what for the mods. The team, was it T-Mob? I can't remember what it is. I know I was in a guild with someone a few years ago that used to use the add-on. Obviously, you didn't do anything silly like stream yourself using it or anything like that. Hiya, Storm Send. But that's another weird one, and probably again comes down. I mean, obviously, you know, none of these bans, these controversial bans that have been going out recently, have been. I mean, they've all been for knowingly flouting the rules, and a possible, you know, sanction for that is being having your account suspended or whatever. But again, it's one of these communication things again, yeah, isn't it? So I gather, although I'm still trying to find out exactly what was going on, that they sort of unbanned people, or they changed their mind a little bit, thought they'd been a bit overzealous or something like that. I don't know. But of course, what most people have been pointing out to Blizzard is, you know, the fact that people have been able to edit their characters in these ways means that the game can do it. So why don't Blizzard do something about it? It's all very well when we try and ask for more customization of our characters and Blizzard go, oh, you're old technology type thing. Well, it's like, well, if third-party software can do it, why can't they do it? Why can't they give us a few sliders or something like that? The ban for the mods also made the flag carry and flag carry PvP seem a lot bigger and easier to find. Okay. I mean, that obviously something like that is a situation where you are... I mean, in general, I've got no issue with people being banned for doing it because you know you're breaking the rules. You're modifying the game. I mean, that's... You can't do that in any game, in any online game, modifying the game when it's an online game with other players on the game developer's servers. That's just never allowed. But I again, it's one of these situations where you can't help have a little bit of sympathy. And this is what I keep banging my head on the table about every single time, isn't it? Aye, Captain Obvious. Every single time I'm trying to say to Blizzard, people like to customize their character. And before we end up talking about player housing again, this is a classic case of let people have, you know, more freedom to design their character to be unique. And I do not know why they don't do it. I can understand, you know, if there are some technical challenges. Like, I'm not saying we should compare it to the latest MMOs because, you know, they've got newer engines or whatever other technical things matter with these things. But when it can be done, when it's provably doable, there's no excuses there. And they keep having this thing about like restricting people's ability to decide what their character looks like. And, you know, and I don't mean, obviously, you know, it's your world. There's certain looks in a game you might say, well, that wouldn't fit with this world. But we're not talking about that. Lotro was way better customization. That game was ancient. It was, yeah. I mean, Lord of the Rings Online, I would still say, has the best transmog system. I'm not saying you'll be able to make your character look better than other games because it is dated. That's quite clear. That being said, the system for dealing with transmog was the best because it was the least restrictive imaginable. It was like, make your character look however you want them to look. That was it. I mean, Elder Scrolls Online is pretty good. But I would say it's less customizable than Lotro. And also, Lord of the Rings Online, you know, had a real good attitude to it as well. They didn't just let you customize yourself with whatever gear. They actually put purely cosmetic items in the game and lots of it. You know, little things. You know, like Blizzard do the micro weekends, you know, that's all great. That's fine. But they do little events like that where you can get cosmetic gear. And it's not power gear. It's just for cosmetic. And yet people go mad for it. You think it's a double-edged sword? If they give us the choice, you'll get people that complain there is too much. If people are going to complain there's too much freedom, I don't understand that. I don't understand it. No. You should have... As I say, there will be looks that wouldn't fit World of Warcraft. Obviously, don't give players access. I'm not saying put in styles that don't really fit the World of Warcraft thing. But what I'm saying is the styles that are already in the game, don't restrict people from using it. If people want to use it, let them use it. Dyeing gear as well. And again, this is one of those things where they do say there are technical problems with the ability to dye. Now, it may be true. I don't have the technical expertise to say yes or no. But it occurs to me that Blizzard make great use out of using recolors of the same bloody armor 6 or 7 times. So, forgive me for being a little bit cynical. But even if that is true and you can't have dyes in the game, there are things we know we can have in the game because a certain modification that has got some people banned, or did have some people banned, has proven that you can do it. If they can do it, Blizzard can do it. You know, instead of punishing people for just being tempted, just do it themselves. They know people want to be able to do these things. But yeah, in Lord of the Rings Online, you've got the full range of things. It's absolutely immense. It's a shame that it is so dated. And I have to say, I think even at the time, I didn't play it when it first came out, but when did I first play it? I first played it 10 years ago. So it won't have been out for long when I first played it. The first expansion was, I think actually, I started playing it when the first expansion was out and the next expansion was not far away. And even at the time, I have to say, it didn't feel ultra modern. But at the same time, the game was very good. As long as you don't have to deal with what was going on in Star Wars, the pink cowboys and assless chaps is too much for you. If people want to do that... Now, I mean, something like that you're not going to get, because again, certain styles don't really fit World of Warcraft. But let people do whatever they want. Within the styles that already exist. What I'm basically saying is, look at a transmog. Right, you are in Ironforge or Orgrimmar or wherever the hell, and you see a player and they're in a transmog. You think, wow, that's brilliant. I want that. All right, you're a bit unoriginal, just copying someone else. But you should be able to get it. You shouldn't go, wow, that's amazing. I'd like that. Oh, but I'm a cloth wearer and that's leather. No, that shouldn't be an issue. People want their characters to... I mean, there's 2 levels that they fail on. It's like they're on the ground floor, almost the ground floor. Okay, they introduced transmog. That was a step up. But it's still very, very low down the transmog pyramid. Because the first thing is people want to make their character look unique. They can't really do that. You know, there's not enough variation of the way you make your actual character look, regardless of the clothing. Then the next level above that is just to not have restrictions on what you look like. If you want, if a mage wants to go around in what looks like full plate armor, I don't care about that. First expansion came out in 2008. I'm pretty sure it's 2000. Basically, when I started playing it, was after the first tier, or just at the end of the first tier of Wrath of the Lich King, because I'd quit WoW because I thought this is a load of rubbish. And little did I know that what came next was actually very good, according to a lot of people, and I can well believe them. Unfortunately, Wrath of the Lich King had a very, very bad start. It's the only thing that gives me sometimes a little bit of hope. For, you know, when an expansion comes out like BFA, it's really bad at the start. You might think, well, it was really bad in Wrath and then it got better. But, you know, a different team. I have no faith in the current one now. So, yeah, Mines of Moria was definitely out. And I think the next one was about to come out. So I'd just about got myself through the Mines of Moria when the next one came out. So I was straight into the next one, basically. Which was like a elfy one, wasn't it? Wood elf type one. Can't remember. Lotro looked old 10 years ago, and it did. I mean that's what I mean. It didn't look brand spanking new when it was brand spanking new. But it wasn't a massive. But I think a lot of the budget. I mean, it's what you would call a big budget game in a way. But I think a lot of the budget may have gone on the license. I don't know what a license like that costs. But also, to be fair to them, it's not like what budget there was wasted, because the actual game systems were very good. The only criticism I would now have of it is that it never really moved on towards a more... It's still very old school MMO. And some people like that. Very old school, very much a grind to get... You know, you get a character to level cap. To get another character through to level cap, you're not really getting any shortcuts as a veteran player. You know, if we describe a veteran player as someone who has a character at level cap. Whereas I think once you've got one character at level cap, there should be certain shortcuts in just playing another class. I mean, ESO is brilliant. To the point where, you know, when the ESO expansion comes out, I've been getting my main character ready to do that and do some streaming of it. I've been pottering about, you know. I'm not ruling out just doing a necromancer and playing through the expansion on a new character. They're removing the whole armor type cloth plate leather with heritage armor now. Well, bit by bit they are, but they're still arguing that you should have a certain silhouette as a particular category of armor, even though, you know, that contradicts, as you say, the heritage armor thing. Siege of Mirkwood, indeed. Captain Obvious would have been the one that I just got into, yes. Wrath of the Lich King releases what classic WoW will be like raid-wise. Yeah, I think it probably will. Except, of course, it will be a bit slower to gear up. There are something that doesn't really happen these days in raiding, but did happen in classic, in vanilla. Keep calling it classic. I don't know. I never know whether to call it vanilla or classic now, because the community called it vanilla for so long, and then Blizzard went along and called it classic, and then we're okay with that. We're fine with that. But it's like, I know, it's shift. But there were gear checks, weren't there? There were bosses that were gear checks. And although knowing more about the game and having gone through it before, and also having much more detailed guides than existed at the time, will help. I mean, put it this way, coordinating 40 people. Now, granted, you didn't need all 40 people to do anything clever, but it only takes a few people to do something stupid, and that's enough to ruin you. So, yeah, so gearing up will be a thing still. And it'll not slow people down massively, but it will slow people down. Do I think WoW players would welcome player housing after the garrison? The garrison, you know, the garrison used the technology that could be used for player housing, but the garrison was not player housing. People would love it. Like, I cannot emphasize enough just how much the majority of MMO players, any role-playing game players, in fact, want to customize. You know, player housing is a brilliant way to customize, they want to feel immersed in the world. Blizzard keep talking about it, but they keep using the word immersion, and yet they have no idea what it means. When you've got your own little part of that world and you get to design it yourself, that's immersion. That's what people want. Having guild halls would be amazing, and there's so many things you could do with guild halls. Because, do you know what? The purpose of a guild hall, really, the best purpose of a guild hall is to actually show off the achievements of that guild. And when it comes to guild type content for which you really want a guild, Blizzard do really well. Raiding is stunning. You know, it's something they still, even in BFA, by all accounts, do really well. So, guild halls, of course, would be, they'd be able to do something very, very special with that. Do I think they'll do an 8.3 patch? Yeah, you know, there is going to be an 8.3. They said it's going to follow similar format to Legion. Legion had a 7.3. There will be an 8.3. 8.3 is where we kill uns off. I'm telling you. Absolutely telling you. So there will absolutely be an 8.3 patch. And then a few months after that, they will... I mean, I see no reason why it won't even be the same time scale. What are we on now? When did... hold on, let me just have a quick... I want to have a quick check when 7.2 came out. That really... okay. So we're a bit behind because 7.2 released March 23rd, 2017. So we're already basically into May. It's obviously not there. I suppose that might mean... Because 7.3 was just before Christmas, wasn't it? If I have a quick look at 7.3. Oh, it was well before Christmas. August 29th. I didn't realise it was that early. Was it really? Okay. Apparently that was August 29th. If you add on two extra... If we say we're 2 months behind. So, August 29th. Let's say November-ish for 8.3. That could still be the alpha coming out March-ish time. How do I rate Ian's performance as game director? I think he's a very poor game director. I don't think it's, you know, he was very well regarded as an encounter designer. He was very good at that. And he keeps changing things. That's not good. You know, he keeps shifting the parameters for the teams, which is very poor. He's not at all effective at coordinating teams. So as game director, I mean, to be fair, his predecessor was not good either. So, you know, I mean, if his predecessor had been good, or at least good at the end, I mean, I'm not saying he was always rubbish children, but, you know, he was bad at the end. It would seem much worse, but it's not at all impressed. In fact, very, very disappointed that he's not improving. I see no improvement. I see no sign of improvement. And that's what I mean about not having any confidence that things would pick up significantly. Like Wrath, night and day. You know, what put me off, the first chunk of Wrath, and bear in mind, even though I played the Wrath beta, I wasn't as involved in the community side of things, so there'll be certain things I might have known about that I didn't know about had I been otherwise. And so it came out, and it took me a while to level up because of fitting it around work. It was always really bad. But then, you know, we went into the raid, did Naxxramas. It was disappointing enough that the original Naxxramas had disappeared. But we're a guild who've basically we hadn't cleared Naxxramas, but, you know, I say we, I wasn't in their guild in vanilla, but I was actually in a guild that was a bit more advanced, and I didn't clear it all. So, you know, there were a couple of players in the guild by this point who had cleared it all, though. But basically, we were all experienced on most bosses in Naxxramas from, you know, 2 years previous. And so, and we were appalled at how they... And it's not just that it was easy because we knew the fight. It was just easy. You know, the DPS checks weren't as high. Whole mechanics had just been ripped out of it. So Naxxramas went from being... You know, at the time, and I would still say now, because I never progressed through Ulduar or ICC, so I would still say Naxxramas is my favourite raid, the original Naxxramas. You know, I had so, you know, the challenge, the bar, I've never done a raid that has felt as challenging. And obviously that's not an absolute term, because obviously as raiders became more sophisticated, you could argue Naxxramas doesn't stack up to certain other ones. But of the time, absolutely. But yeah, so I was really disappointed with that, and so we basically killed every raid boss within a week of me getting to level cap. That was it. They're all dead, gone, and I hadn't even done all the dungeons yet. I thought, this is appalling. So all that was left to do was achievements, which had just been introduced. And I thought this was it for raiding. I thought this was the new style of raiding. You know, because you've got to bear in mind, I was someone who used to complain about how TBC was too casual. Because I was looking at, you know, all the stuff that had come in all for the casual. I've changed my mind now. I've mellowed now. I realise I was wrong. So I thought it had just gone full casual. Not only did you have the 10-man and the 25-man, and... you know, the way they were doing the 2 different difficulties as well. And I just thought, is this it? Good players will just clear it in a few days, and then you just do achievements. Oh, that's not raiding. So I quit the game. Didn't realise that they were just off to a slow start, that's all. It's only on beta and could be out July, August. I don't think July, I think that'd be a bit late, July, August. I'm not sure I would say that. I mean, August is going to be way too late for it, surely. I don't even believe July. I would think... I know it's only just come out on PTR. I would still think June. But who knows? I mean, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. But at the rate it's going, BFA is going to last more than 2 years. So, you know, buckle in. Last major patch often lasts a year before new expansion. Well, a lot of things have changed recently. You know, I wouldn't go too much on historical stuff. There has to be a certain amount of time. I mean, you've got to bear in mind the last... So, I mean, that was the case, indeed, for the last expansion. Which wasn't bad, because the last patch of the last expansion was also a good one. I mean, what matters more is the dead time, isn't there? There wasn't that much dead time with Legion. There was just enough to allow the more advanced players to complete it and then do a decent amount of testing on the alpha and beta. And for other players to actually do the content. So I thought in Legion it was pretty good. I thought the balance was pretty good. The main thing I would query about Legion, as I say, because they didn't have an event at the end of it that allows you know, the invasions type thing that allows you to level up characters quickly. And I think that's so important for an expansion. Any number of people will suddenly decide they want to play a new class just before an expansion comes out. Not months ahead, literally a couple of weeks ahead. Because, you know, the classes are then... Everyone knows how the classes are going to play. You know, they go, I want to play this now. And they don't necessarily want to use their level boost on it. They just want to level it up. And that was, you know, the invasions at the end of the WOD. Really fun way to do it, weren't they? I mean, I leveled a couple up. Not to use, just, you know, because I thought it was all right. It was quite a pleasant leveling experience, really. Anyway, speaking of that, who was the game director before Tom Chilton? Do you know? I can't even... Was it? It wasn't Ghostcrawler then, was it? Greg Street. Oh. Let's see how clever thing is. Let's see if I can find it. I'm not sure it's going to be easy to find, actually. It'll be somewhere. It'll be somewhere. I mean, Greg Street was game director, wasn't he? But I'm pretty sure it was probably him. But anyway. Do I think the content released so fast in Legion, maybe BFA's slower content is overall better? I do think Legion released stuff quicker than it needed to, yeah. It got better. I mean, the previous couple of expansions, it was even worse. You know, I think Mop and WoD. The problem with expansions, and I can't comment on Cataclysm because I'd quit. I didn't play Cataclysm at the start. But generally speaking, they were pretty bad at front-loading an expansion. Now, I think it's really important to get loads of stuff in to the start of an expansion. You obviously need to go off with a bang. Yes, there's got to be lots and lots to do. Don't have an expansion be a slow burner. But, because you lose, that's when you lose players. Because players will innately just think the start of an expansion is the best it's going to be. It might try and maintain the level, but that is it. If it's not a good start, it's not going to be a good expansion. Whether or not that's true is another matter. So, yeah, but they often front loaded it, and then to show how much stuff they've got, then they'd push the rest out a bit too quick, a little bit too quick. So Legion was better, but it was still a bit too quick. So yeah, I do approve of the pacing in BFA. Yes. Ghostcrawler. Oh, is he just lead systems designer? Was he? I don't know. Was there even a games director? Did they maybe just call it something different? Because he used to do a lot of the PR that Ian Hazacostas now does. I mean, I suppose that could just be because Ian's a bit of controlling, maybe. I can't remember. Because it's so long ago. It's too long. I've quit the game pretty much twice since then. The best thing they could have done for BFA expansion was have little assaults. They should have done something. To have nothing was poor. And it's all, it's not like you have to put a lot of effort into it as well. I mean, all you need is a theme. The invasions, just do the invasions, but with a different theme. They could have had invasions rather than of demons, of like cultists or something, couldn't they? All old godsy. Hi, Rune Saga. You're excited for some fun ideas in 8.2. They're really getting things cooking there. Well, they're certainly adding more variety of things to do in it, yes. Pet battle range. I've never even done a pet battle dungeon. I don't think I intend to. Gone. Little assaults on the Eastern Kingdoms of Kalimdor. Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. They could have. It's so easy to do. It wouldn't have taken much work. You just replace the demons with something else. It's easy. You like the pre-Kata events? See, now I didn't do that because I wasn't playing the game at the time. Even though I technically came back to play casually later on in Wrath, so it's not like after the first tier in Wrath I abandoned the game completely. I did come back a bit, only because my computer exploded and I couldn't really play Lord of the Rings online very well, and I couldn't play Warhammer online at all, which is what I'd been playing in the interim. But yeah, but then I just stopped again. What happened actually? Something happened, made me stop again. I think it's just that I ended up with a new job and a new girlfriend, and I just stopped because I was only playing casually anyway. I think that was what it was. And then about a year later, I managed to manage both, or so I thought, and then got back into it again. So yeah, I didn't play the pre-Kata stuff, so I don't have any memories of that. I believe it involved gnomes, so You've just started playing ESO, just hit cat 160. That's making me feel bad now because I've been so lazy. The problem with me, see, I'm not much higher than 100. I'm only like 240-ish. The problem with me is I keep starting to level up new characters again. So I'm not actually advancing my command champion points. Find yourself appreciating aspects of WoW anymore from playing it? Not really. The only thing I appreciate in WoW over some of the other better MMOs is the raiding. The raiding in WoW is it's not perfect. I have criticisms, but it's very, very good. But given that I'm not able to raid in any MMO, there isn't anything that, well, no, I'll tell you a lie. There is one thing that I do appreciate from WoW as a casual player, even playing ESO. And that is that in WoW, at least, the game's developers agree with me that animation cancelling is bad. It's poor and should be eliminated. That is a good thing. But in terms of everything else, ESO is effectively a far superior game for a casual or even semi-casual player. The biggest issue doing it was they already set the release date, so we're on a tight time frame. What, for BFA? Yeah, that's absolutely a massive issue. Like, you've got to remember the first few expansions, when, remember, it wouldn't have been digital download, it was discs. I had them here a minute ago, actually. It was discs. They gave you 2 months' notice. They announced the evening, Corey and Fraser. They announced the release dates of expansions to begin with 2 months ahead of time, and that was basically them. It was done. They only announced it when it was ready. The 2 months' notice was because stuff had to get into the shops because it was physical copies of things before digital downloads came in. The last 2 expansions, they've given us 4 months' notice, and it is digital now. And so they don't really need to give us that much notice at all. And it's foolish. Actually, I say it's foolish. The reason for it is not folly, though, is it? It's greed. It was so that they could push the pre-orders as soon as possible. They're doing what every other games developer seems to do now. Grab as much money from it as possible before people even know what the game's. Hype it up, because this is what will happen this November in BlizzCon. They'll hype up the next expansion, hype the hell out of it. They won't tell you how. You never get any information from the initial reveal about how it's going to play. They just talk in very aspirational terms, and then you get ideas in your head. Oh, it could be like this, and it's never like that. And then you end up buying it sight unseen. Classic is getting closer. How excited am I? I'm not excited at all. I will potter about in it a bit, not a lot. It's just nostalgia. I've done it all. I did it at the time, and I was quite happy with it. I didn't need it to go on any longer. I needed my guild to go on a little bit longer. The lazy bastards. They quit raiding as soon as the release date was announced. They quit raiding, so we've left Naxxramas uncleared. But anyway, sorry, let's go back up. I'm missing some out here. Mechagong is looking like timeless art. Yeah, I think that's the idea of it. Only it's worse because it's got gnomes in it. And also it's worse because you've got to actually spend time in there building things. The dungeon also has secrets and fun ideas. The general idea of Mechagong is fine, is good. Yes, the fact that there's lots of little things to do, good. The fact that it's gnome related, not so good. Not so good. Remember Ian said he was disappointed BFA did not have a Legion star. Well, yeah, I remember him saying that. To which, if I was interviewing, my response would have been, you're the game director. You know what? But no, I'm not excited for Classic. It's just, all it is for me is a trip down memory lane. And I've said this before, if they had not updated the zones for Cataclysm, I wouldn't even be looking forward to it because there'd be nothing else about it. I mean, class design wasn't good. There's nothing to look forward to there. It's purely the zones and the style of questing that I miss. And the dungeons. Oh, dungeons. I like Scholarman's my favourite dungeon ever. How did people play betas before digital downloads became a thing? Well, you just downloaded it. You downloaded those digitally. You know, because it was like a patch. It wasn't really a patch because it was a new version of the game, but it was like that. You did download those. Do you think there's a decent chance we'll get a new game announced at BlizzCon or a new expansion remastered of all games? Well, when it's a new game, it's impossible to say, isn't it? Because wouldn't it be awful if they've got a new mobile game in the offering? I mean, they're always developing new games, so who knows? You never know. They may well announce a new game. And if they want to announce it at BlizzCon, you would think it'll be very firmly under wraps. And we'll have no inkling of it. But wouldn't it be terrible if it was a mobile game? That they announced a new mobile game. Oh, who'd draw the short straw to announce that? But I can't say that there's a decent chance we'll get a new game announced, because I don't even know if there's one ready for announcing. So much more likely expansions. You're glad the word gnome isn't censored on here, unlike the Twitch channel. Well, people abused it on the Twitch channel. You're not at all excited about Classic. Broke the habit of playing ages ago and you can't replace the excitement of exploration. No, but the advantage of getting old is you start to forget things. So, you know, you wipe your memory out and then it's quite similar to being new again, except it won't be. But no, I'm not gonna play it properly. There's other games. There's games I haven't explored at all that I haven't played that I would much rather spend my time on personally. Now, whether I end up spending more time on it than retail, which at the moment wouldn't be difficult, you know, just creating a character would be spending more time than on retail at the moment. Now that might be more interesting because I would never have thought that was going to be the case 6 months ago. You only played casually back then. You don't think you even did a dungeon? Oh wow, that is casual. Did you get to level cap even? Or did you just level a bit? Because there were an awful lot of people. There was a statistic, and I can't remember what it was, Blizzard announced one time, during Vanilla, about how many people had an account. But it was only a very small percentage of accounts had a level capped character. And this was a good year into it as well. It surprised me. You cheated to champion points 160. That's not cheating. There's plenty of ways to get... There's three major ways to get experience boosts in ESO at the moment. Obviously, there's the event, which is still going on for another week or so, I think. I can't remember. It's a shame it doesn't go on forever. Then you can get training gear, which is what I make all my characters. And then you've got... you can just get the scrolls, which you just get every now and then when you level anyway. Or you can just buy them. Loads of ways if you want to ramp up your experience. Do I think they'll tell us about the WoW Pet Battle mobile game at Blizzard? They talked about how they're working on one at the moment. I mean, obviously, if you've got a game that you want to announce, BlizzCon, and round about that time, BlizzCon is the very place to do it. Why wouldn't you? And there's nothing wrong as such with mobile games. But what they need to do is to announce it in a forum where they're telling people that it's an announcement about a mobile game. They don't want to say, oh, we've got some really great news, you're going to be really excited, and then say a mobile game. They should have learnt that lesson. So it needs to be for a delegation where they've been specifically told mobile game announcement. Don't I use Twitch anymore? No, not really. Because the thing with Twitch is, it has, purely from game streaming point of view, it does have certain advantages over YouTube. I'll give you that. In fact, YouTube, they sent me an email today. They're changing something. And I don't know what it is. I don't think it affects me. But I'm not 100%. But no Game of Thrones. Although, I'm not desperately trying to avoid spoilers. I am not watching it until it comes out on Blu-ray. But then again, I watched the first 7 having known a number of spoilers anyway, because I wasn't going to watch it, so I never. But you know, a student today. I'm not going to say it. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil it. A student today, one of my classes, spoilt it as well. It just talks about a thing that happened this week, and I thought, thanks very much. I haven't seen it yet. But anyway. But no, the thing with Twitch is, if you're going to do it regularly, then it's probably better. If you're not, then it's not. So yeah. Anyway, you've become more cruel to gnomes. I mean, it's not really cruelty. I mean, you wouldn't describe washing your hands as being cruel to bacteria, do you? You only, cruelty is really reserved for inflicting suffering. And to have suffering, you have to be sentient. I'm not really sure gnomes. I think gnomes are it's just reflexes. When you hit them and they squeak, I think that's just a reflex. I don't think they actually suffer as such. It never seems to wipe that stupid grin off their face. You no longer help them kill boss, and sometimes bring in big elites to their AoE and shadow step vanish, so they all have all the aggro. Good. It's what they deserve. You just ran around Silverpine Forest mostly just killing stuff. If you were Horde, then you could have killed some gnomes, because there was some gnome mages around Dalaran then, weren't there? You only got to level 20, right, okay. I mean, there were a lot of people in that situation. A lot of people, apparently. It did surprise me. Do I think Blizzard is working on StarCraft 3? I mean, I struggle to believe not, because I've never really played it, because again, sci-fi game, I have this thing about sci-fi games. But I have to say, as sci-fi games go, and I've never played StarCraft 2, I don't actually mind watching it. At BlizzCon sometimes I will watch I don't like watching like World of Warcraft arenas or anything. But I'll watch StarCraft 2 competitions. I don't mind that. It's quite good. But yeah, I mean, hasn't it been a very, very long time since they've actually produced any properly new content for it? It's bizarre. So you would think so. You would certainly hope so. Unless, of course, they're working on... But I can't, because it's still quite popular, isn't it, as a franchise? I don't understand why they wouldn't have brought something out by now. And I know they've sort of hinted at the fact that they, just like with Diablo, they have had ideas that haven't come to fruition, and that's what's delaying things. Because that's what they tried to do to placate everyone, wasn't it, with Diablo? A Diablo mobile game. Oh, we want Diablo 4. It says, well, we were trying to do it, and we didn't. But we're still trying to do it. You could watch StarCraft 2 when Total Biscuit used to host it, but a lot of the guys have that nasally nerd voice. You can't listen to them for more than 2 minutes. Oh, I don't know. I'm not too bad. But I mean, I didn't watch it at the last one. But generally speaking, at BlizzCon, if I'm pottering about, if there's nothing else of interest on and I'm just on the computer, I'll quite happily watch some StarCraft 2. I mean, you can sort of roughly appreciate what's going on, because it's in the RTS at the end of the day, without actually knowing the details of it. But it does amaze me already that they haven't done. I mean, if not a StarCraft 2, then at least something StarCraft based. Who does My Little Anduin Sylvanas? Well, they're not animations, but it's Firecat Rich on Twitter. I'm just trying to remember. I'm pretty sure it's Firecat Rich on Twitter. Let me double check that. Yes. Firecat Rich. I'm not quite sure how those 3 words were jammed together for that Twitter handle, but that's what it is. RTS games really niche now. Would be a big risk, spend a lot of resources on it. Maybe. Well, I mean, do you need to spend a lot of resources on it? I don't know how much the going rate would be now. It's not like, I mean, a lot of the cost of other games are things like big fancy detailed high-res graphics and things. Obviously it'd have to be high-res, but you don't need, they're not as detailed, are they? And also you don't need the big expensive cinematics. You like one for launching it and that's about it, isn't it? I don't know that a lot of the costs apply to an RTS, even if you're developing a new one. Obviously there's a team required to do it. But of course they've said that they're going to get more developers into Blizzard, haven't they? When they were announcing the cost cutting, getting rid of a load of people instead of moving to other projects, it was like, well, we're going to get a load of new developers. Some of which, of course, they said are going to go on existing projects, but some of which you would assume would be for new projects. Talking about GOT spoilers, well, don't. After its show, it was doing a Warfront, and people were saying that a lot of us were just spots AFK, but we were farming ironwood. Hate doing that still. You got there and said, okay, to prove I'm not okay, I will spoil GOT. God, bit of hate. No, you have to do that. Bugger. Hang on, I'm taking a drink from the wrong. That's the not dilute one. I'm pretty sure you can prove you're not a bot by just saying something. Taliesin talks about Warcraft 3 Reforged. Could be Blizzard testing the waters for Warcraft 4. Could be. And they could add completely new expansion playable races which weren't there originally. Yeah. The problem is, I'll tell you what I'd be interested in. The problem is they could add gnomes, is where my thought was going there. What it would be interesting is if they did do a Warcraft 4 RTS, because you have to think about where in the timeline it's set, and it would be interesting if World of Warcraft's still going on and they set it significantly after World of Warcraft. They can add Vulpera to it. I don't care about that. I don't see why, though. I don't see why people want to play pathetic races. I mean, do people just wish to identify with victims all the time? I mean, that's what it is. You know, wanting to play a Vulpera is a victim fetish. They're like the most pathetic creatures. Even the one who breaks you free, which everyone says, oh no, look, this mighty warrior. That mighty warrior who had to stand still and wait for you to initiate combat every time. They never go streaming in themselves. But yes, they could put Vulpera in. But I'd be thinking more in terms of very far future or very far past. I mean, they could do like War of the Ancients RTS sort of thing, I guess, again. The only way you can see it work is if WoW has a time jump. Warcraft 4 comes out during that time, but that's... no, Warcraft... I mean, it's quite tricky. The thing is, if you set it in the future, then a certain amount of the World of Warcraft story will effectively be spoiled. It can't be helped. If you set it in the far past, then the story of Warcraft 4 is also predetermined. So what do you do? It's tricky either way, isn't it? It is tricky either way. But I don't even know how to ban words on this. We just have to trust that people are going to be relatively responsible. Where are we going? Parallel universe. We've already done that in World of Warcraft for a start. Parallel universes are always a terrible cop-out. Unless you're actually using the parallel universe premise. You know, like Back to the Future 2? Yes, superb. Okay? If you're going to use it, use it. I mean, there's been some Doctor Who stories that have been quite good based on it. But when you're using it as a cop-out, it's a cop-out. And no. We don't need a Warcraft multiverse. I mean, we already sort of have one. Oh, you got a trial with a guild tonight. You'll be 2 new bosses you'd have to learn very quickly. Yeah, a lot of them are disbanded. I mean, generally they've been disbanded on 8 out of 9, haven't they? It's been Jaina that's beaten them back. You like Star Trek's Mirror Universe? Yeah, I'm not so keen, I have to say. I say that. I only watched the first film, but it's the first film that put me off. It wasn't terrible, though. It wasn't a terrible use of the parallel universe. But I wasn't keen on it still. But no, they absolutely don't want to be doing. But it is tricky, as I say, the story for if they did do a Warcraft 4, which I'm not convinced they would, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility. Oh, Deep Space Nine. I barely remember that. I had a friend who was mad keen on it. I thought it was better than Next Generation, but not a great deal. I wasn't a huge fan. Do I think they would take a completely different direction after Classic is released? No, I mean, the thing with Classic is I'm not entirely sure why they eventually agreed. A lot of people have been asking for it for a very, very long time. There's clearly been demand for it for a while. Blizzard said they didn't want to do it, mostly because they saw all sorts of pitfalls. And all those pitfalls are very evidently there, aren't they? Because they will not be able to please everyone. And more specifically, the people they don't please won't just go, oh, that's disappointing, not what I wanted, I'll not play it. No, they will rage because they wanted this thing that they thought they, in their particular mold for so long. And then a version comes along and it's not what they wanted. They will rage. So they completely, I understand Blizzard's point of view. They completely set themselves up for a fall on it. But then they changed their mind. Now, whether they changed their mind just because the demand for it just went above a certain threshold, I don't think so. I think what's more likely is when we talk about Blizzard didn't want to do it, what we're probably talking about is that some people in Blizzard wanted to do it, some people in Blizzard didn't want to do it. The people in Blizzard that didn't want to do it were the more influential at that time. And then the balance of power or influence, whatever you want to call it, has shifted. And then it shifted to the side of, yes, we want to do it. I think it was probably as simple as that, but that is just speculation. I don't actually know about that. But I still think it's just something to please a group of people who are not happy with retail, but might like this. I think it's just another string to the bow. I don't believe it's for testing anything out. I don't believe it's dipping toes in any waters. In fact, I think they're going ahead with it with a certain amount of trepidation. How do I see the future of the Tauren race? Preferably between 2 halves of a bread bun with some relish on it. And the future of Bane. I hope to goodness I don't believe he's going to be the next war chief. And the reason I'm not totally convinced of that. So I go back again to that interview that those journalists gave at the start of the expansion, where they said the Horde is going to change. He said, they said, Sylvanas and Saurfang represent the old Horde, different parts of the old Horde. A new Horde is going to emerge. In other words, there's going to be a new war chief. It's not going to be Saurfang and it's not going to be Sylvanas. Bane, to me, does not seem far removed from Saurfang's Horde. A little bit. There are differences, but it doesn't seem to me to be very far removed. So I don't believe they intend Bane. Princess Dufa, Tamanji, whatever her name is, the Zandalari. I mean, she might, she's my dark horse to become the next war chief. War Chief Gallywix. That would indeed be a very new horde. I will grant you that. There is no doubt about it. That would indeed represent a very new, very mercantile horde. I don't think that's what they're shooting for, if I'm going to be completely honest. But anyway, you love my idea about the AI for raids. Last week as a healer, you had to wait for over an hour. You waited in LFR for an hour. Wow, that is dedication. As soon as we got in the tanks, as soon as we got one in the tanks left. Yeah, I mean, I would use it for that. LFR is just a tour. That's all it is. It's not playing the game. And they know that. It's tourist mode. Just get some... They'd probably play better. You know, they'd probably be a lot better. It's so easy to do as well with the technology they've got now. I would absolutely develop it for that. Don't make people wait in LFR, for goodness sake. The LFR serves no purpose other than for people who don't have time to do anything organised. They need to queue up, get in, get it done, get out. Why make them wait when you've got the capacity to not? You can honestly see him going for Talanji or Lorthamar. I don't know about Lorthamar. He's too quiet. He's not really alpha enough, is he? But Talanji I can see. I can see Talanji. The DPS on the raid said, good idea, they would be better than 99% of the tank these days. Yes. And they'd be better than everything. You know, you could even make them sort of occasionally not dodge out the way of mechanics so they take some damage, get the healers to do something. Thoughts on new races? What, as in brand new races? Or just allied races are you talking about? Because apart from the potato people, then what we really need is a race that eats gnomes. That could be good. You could have it as an alliance race. Joins the alliance, eats any gnomes. And you could have it as a racial, couldn't you? A bit like Cannibalize. You know, for undead. Do they still have that? They used to have Cannibalize, didn't they? Where they get health back if they chomp on. I think it had to be done out of combat. I can't remember. And they could chomp on a corpse. I'm not sure they've got it anymore. You could have something like that. Only the gnome's alive when they're doing it. Trogs eat gnomes. I'm not suggesting we get a trog for a playable race. Yeah, but, well, we could have Alliance Undead, as I say. We could have, like, you know, as I say, the novel, the you know, Before the Storm novel, sort of heralds Alliance Undead. You know, if we don't get Alliance Undead out of it, I really don't know what that book was all about. Do they still have it? Okay, right. Ogres. Oh. Do we really need... I mean, what would an ogre ride, for goodness sake? Isn't it bad enough with Tauren and Draenei getting stuck in doorways? Do we actually need something that would get stuck in a doorway without even being on a mount? Do we need that? I mean, what's an ogre going to ride? It'd have to be that mount you got from Blackrock Foundry, wouldn't it? Big old thing. They could ride gnomes. I really don't think they could. People have indeed been asking for ogres, and I wouldn't rule Blizzard. I wouldn't rule out Blizzard doing them, because again, it's like Pandaren, isn't it? There's no reason why ogres couldn't be. I mean, Warcraft 3 players would probably straight away say no. Really, they're horde. I suppose they are. Ogres ride code. No, they've got to have their own racial mount. They can't just nick the Tauren one. Got to have their own. Maybe they could ride a skateboard. Give them a big old skateboard. Woolly mammoths. Well, therein lies your problem. There is the problem. You know, basically Beast Claws raiders in Warcraft, from Warhammer. And they'd get stuck. They would get stuck in the entrance to Ironforge. They could ride small pigs. That would look ridiculous. Mind you, there are races that do look ridiculous. I mean, I still don't know who it was that decided on the racial mounts of Blood Elves. They must really have hated Blood Elves, surely. Giant sloth mount, yeah. Can climb trees, can they, as well? So yeah, I would imagine riding a pig wouldn't look more ridiculous than riding those ostrich things that the Dark Elves seem to have, which is beyond ridiculous. But I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't rule out ogres, but I'm not sure I see it being likely. Talking about mounts, what about the ship mount? It's been added to the... Has it? What, the ship mount has been added to the store? I did not know that. Well, that is... that's a bit cheeky. Let's have a little look here. They could introduce planes running for ogres. Do they really look like they're in any sort of hurry, ogres, ever? Oh yeah, there it is, the Dreadwake. Ooh, what have people been saying about? I need to check on the forums at some point. So first of all, people are made to pay for 6 months to get it. I mean, all right, that's their own lookout. And then they just put it on the... Well, at least it means if I can get it now. That's fine. Anyway. Loads of drama about the ship mount. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. The ESO stuff. Well, the ESO stuff is really good. Tusked hoggers would be perfect for ogres, would they? I'm not sure there is a perfect mount for an ogre. Taliesin pointed out that they always said it was going to be on the store. Did they? Ah, okay. I missed that then. But I would still stand by what I said before. What they should, if they want people to subscribe, one really good way would be to just make 4 unique mounts. And I would class the Dreadwake as unique enough. I know people pointed out that it was actually based on BlizzCon one. But it was unique enough. It was different enough. 4 unique mounts. Doesn't matter even if you reuse some assets. And in the year, and just say, right, and you start a period of time. It's like, if you are subscribed for the next 3 months, then you get this mount. And you could, do you know what, as well, I'll tell you what you could do. Yeah, this is it. This is what you could do. So let's call the mounts A, B, C, and D. So 1st of January, at the start of every year, 1st of January, you say, right, if you're subscribed for the whole of January, February, and March, you get Mount A. And then it starts the next 3 months. But let's say you didn't play in January. You started in February. It's like, right, okay. So February, March, and April, you get Mount A. So you always start with Mount. So if you subscribe for 3 months, and even if it's broken up, for 3 months, you get Mount A. But the people who are subscribed all year would get 4 mounts, if you see what I mean. So each 3 months, you get a mount that's only for that, and actually for them to say it's never going on the store, ever. Not even in 3 years' time. And then you get... and then the next 3 months starts and so on. And if you get to the end of the year, tough, it's all stopped, and we start on the new year. That would do more. I'm not saying it's going to get loads of people in. It would get in more than enough to pay for the artist to do it. They do that with 6 months subscription. No, I've never had anything. Not a bean for my subscription. Never received anything. People can't read, apparently. Well, we don't read everything that Blizzard say. And what we do read, we sometimes ignore. If it's a store mount, then that's fine. That's all right. But as I say, it was still a bad promotion. Every 3 months you are subbed, you get a token, more mounts added more often. The thing is, from a marketing point of view, it's better not to do that. Because what you want to do is try and rush people into doing something. Not make them think that they can do it whenever. Like ESO are masters at that. So every now and then they will bring something out. Might be a mount, might be a pet, might be something like that. It's always cosmetic. It's never like, you know, power stuff. But they'll only make it available for like a week or 2 weeks maybe. And then it's gone. It ain't coming back. So that way you get yourself into the mindset of like, it's all right. I'm not sure I really want it though. But in 2 weeks' time, I'll never be able to get it at all. What if in 3 weeks' time I decide I want it? Oh no, I'd better get it. So it'd have that element. If you say to players, these are the 4 mounts coming out this year, and let them know about them in advance. Let them see the last one. Make sure the last one is the best one, because the only way they're getting that is subscribing for the full 12 months. That's it. And you know, and just sort of say, the first 3 months you've subscribed, even if it's a month on, month off, month on, and so on, as soon as you've subscribed for 3 months, you've paid 3 months worth of subscription in that calendar year, you get that mount. And if you want to pay that 3 months in advance, you get the mount straight away. If you just want to do it a month at a time, then you get it when you pay for the 3rd month subscription. You know, fine. That's all great. Do that, and then it starts off again. That would be a far better promotion, because for the price of 3 months subscription, some people might actually pay for a decent mount, even if they don't intend to play the game that much. Obviously, if they didn't intend to play the game at all, there's no point in buying them out, you know, at all. You'd love them to give us a free boost every 6 months. Well, I would love them to have some sort of currency for it, which, and I know that can work against the player as well, where with the subscription you get a certain amount of it and it does build up to services and other things as well. Definitely. The core elements that you loved in the earlier expansions are watered down now. They need to fix a lot to bring it back. The last mount better be damn good and not just a reskin. Oh, yeah. Because that's what you would do. You'd absolutely make sure that the last mount was totally unique. Whether it's good or not, obviously, is in the eye of the beholder. But make it very unique. Like, you know, there is nothing like this mount in the game. Anywhere. And if you do that, that'll work as a marketing ploy. And how much would it really cost just to make 4 mounts? Is there still a sense of accomplishment anymore? Absolutely. If you do certain types of content. You know, you need to do harder content to feel any sort of accomplishment anyway. You know, raiding surely will still give that. Like organised raiding. You know, Mythic Plus, if you push it. PvP, I suppose. I don't know. Killing gnomes, getting gnomes killed in your raid. There's no achievements for that as well. Outrageous. They said they were going to put it in the store in the future when they release it. Yeah, that's fine, Runesaga. Yeah, people have said that. That's okay. I don't remember that. That's fine. Maybe be allowed to use time walking badges to buy a boost. Yeah, you could. Method closing on a 600 wipes. Haven't they? Didn't they do a hot fix? Didn't I see something about a bit of a hot fix on that, boss? Or yes, made 2 adjustments to Mythic difficulty Uranat in blah blah blah. No longer can cast Oblivion Tear immediately following Unstable Resonance, and the timing of Eyes of Unzoth has been changed to coincide less with Unstable Resonance. Unfortunately, now that I don't raid, those terms mean nothing to me. I'm guessing they were both real arseholes to deal with. Gnomes are the best to kill. The bounce when they die. The little squeak they make when they die as well. They make a really nice little noise. It's better than the squirrel death cry. Do a loyalty prolonged subscription mount up pet, example like Final Fantasy 14 does. Well, That's what it would be if they did what I'm suggesting. It would be a loyalty system, basically. Because to get the best mount, or the most unique mount, shall we say, you have to be subscribed all year. It's literally the case of, if you subscribe for any 3 months in the year, you will get this mount. It's unique enough. It might be based off something else, but it's not a recolor. It's a mount that doesn't, because like the Dreadwake, although yeah, people have said it's based on the same frame as the airship thing, it's very different in terms of its look. Do that for your first mount, and actually say that it's not coming out on the store ever. Then for your second one, a bit more unique, you know, ramp it up a little bit more. For your third one, a bit better. And fourth one, totally unique. You're not using any assets from any other mount. You've got an artist to actually use their creativity to come up with something really awesome. And you basically then and let them know in December, like the start of December, give them a month to drool over it all. Start of December, announce these are the mounts available for subscribing next year. And, you know, any 3 months subscribed, you know, whether it's consecutive or not, and you get the first mount. 6 months, you need to be subscribed for 6 months to get the first 2 mounts. 9 months to get the first 3 mounts, and you've got to be subscribed for the whole year to get the 4th one. You know? How awesome is a 2-handed totem skin mace on a Tauren warrior? I don't like the looks of them, actually, I have to say. Just waving a tree trunk around. I don't think anything really looks good on a Tauren, I have to say, other than druid form. So the only way I can play a druid is by turning it into a bear or a cat, albeit a cat with horns, or even you know, an owl if I absolutely have to, because I'm not too keen on those either. But it is I don't get on with Tauren. I mean, I still remember the first time I ever made a Tauren in World of Warcraft, and this is before I knew how to zoom the camera out properly. I was a very new player still, and I was just potting it. It was like a Saturday morning. I was just, you know, decided to play another few characters, and I was hitting things with my stick, and I couldn't see what I was hitting because it was in front of me, and the character filled up a lot of the screen. It certainly obscured the mob, which at low level is very small, because that was the thing, isn't it? Low level Murloc or Pig or whatever it wasn't either of those for Tauren, but it was whatever it was, really small. And then they got bigger and bigger and bigger. The swing animation is done on a Tauren. I don't think they've got an awful lot of mobility, if truth be told. I'm not really sure what they do about that. But all I could say was I could not see the thing I was killing. Or I assumed I was killing. So that was not ideal. Soon put me off that. Because I was fine. I didn't have any disdain for Tauren from Warcraft 3. You know, I mean, apart from anything else, they seemed leaner in Warcraft 3. More like the female Tauren. And then they decided to make Warcraft Taurens, the World of Warcraft Taurens, huge, with no necks. Wish they overhead smashed with a 2-hander. I don't think their anatomy allows them to do that. For male Tauren at any rate. I don't think that's a thing. You think the female Taurens are god-awful, do you? I think they look better than the male ones. I do prefer them. Just having a look. So people that know then what these abilities are, do we think then that Method will just kill it tomorrow after these hot fixes? Was that what was screwing it over for them? I want to actually have a look where people... How many guilds are on 1 out of 2? It's only 36 even on 1 out of 2. Wow. What if they walked on all 4s instead? Or they're going to carry their like sword around in their mouth. How's a Tauren protection warrior going to deal with that? Have their shields sellotaped to their tail and have a sword in their mouth. I mean, of course, they are. I mean, technically, they do walk on all fours. If you create, as I say, a Tauren druid, then they are on all fours. They're fine then. The Worgen run all fours. Well, yeah, they do with their thingy running, which is ridiculous. And Tauren obviously had planes running before. I don't know whether that was on all fours or not though, because by the time I came to the game, that had been removed and they had Codomans. I think that may have only been when it was out in America, or maybe even just beta, and maybe they got rid of it even at launch. I couldn't say, because I didn't play it when it launched. It was a couple of months after it had come out, 2.5 months after it came out in EU, which would be quite a few months after it came out in America. But I'm not sure that there is any saving. If people like Tauren, that's fine. But, for me, there's no real saving them. It was beta when they couldn't use Mount Sarka. Because the only reason I even know that, because I didn't play in beta and I didn't play when it first came out. The only reason I know is because I bought the Prima guide, World of Warcraft. I had a flick through there. And it talks about planes running. I've still got the book somewhere. So that was really it. It was purely that I'd read about it in there and just thought that that's what they did. But there were quite a few things that were in that book that would change, because obviously it changed quite rapidly. There were so many patches in vanilla, weren't there, really? A Tauren decked out in full plate armour does feel pretty beefy. Terrible pun. You think Limit might get the world first this time? What, because Method are more interested in the MDIs, do you think? That's certainly the impression they've given. But no, I will still say the saddest sight I saw in Vanilla WoW was not even from a gnome. It was... and it came back to bite me on the arse as well, because it was in Warsong Gulch. Now, bearing in mind... Just as on the Alliance side, Elements gear dropped, which was the Shaman Dungeon gear. It was quite useful for Paladins if we wanted some, intellect. We had to wear mail, really, to get some intellect gear for healing in raids until we could get the raiding plate intellect gear. Which, of course, meant on the Horde side, Lightforge gear, which was for Paladins, dropped as well. But it wasn't restricted to class. Like there were Paladins who would wear Valor armor, for example. So I saw in Warsong Gulch a Tauren warrior with not just wearing Lightforge, full Lightforge. Like the full set. Even though some of the set bonuses would have done nothing for them. Full set. Which had to be deliberate. No one's telling me that Tauren could not have got some Valor armor. And I remember saying to someone that I was with, thank goodness you can't have Tauren Paladins because that looks ridiculous. And then, of course, a couple of expansions later, that's exactly what they did. Or 3 expansions later. Do you think maybe at BlizzCon they'll announce a level squish? It is possible if they are serious about it. Because they will surely be announcing something for the next expansion. Even though, as we've already discussed, the timing, we're behind the timing that we were at the same point in Legion. But, I mean, they'll only ever announce something that is definitely going to happen. But it is the sort of thing you would think they would do, yeah. Lightforge Heritage Armour looked better, did it? I quite like the Lightforge set. Although I didn't end up with mine, because I turned mine into Soulforge, and then I didn't go back and get the Lightforge as well to have both versions, so I still don't really have the Lightforge. You can only now get it as a Transmog set, can't you? But the Soul Forge is very nice. It looks better in many ways because of the colour scheme. Now you want steak. Yeah, maybe I should get some steak for next week. You hope Classic crushes it when it released. No, no. It's for completely different audiences. If there's many things in Classic WoW that were not good. Lots of things have been massively improved. It's just that with a few of them, as I say, they threw out the baby with the bathwater and they lost some quite nice features. If they do a level squish, you're just going to be salty about the heirlooms you just upgraded. I'm sure that'll all be taken into account as well. You'll still need it to have... I mean, we still don't know what a level squish even means. Does it mean they're just going to squish it, but it still keeps going up? Or do they mean they're going to squish it and introduce a Paragon leveling system, which is what a lot of people would want. I would want. Do I think at BlizzCon they'll announce a new leveling system where your character gains power with each new level? They said it was a long-term project. That, to me, suggests no, that it won't be ready to announce. Because they did announce that they were seriously looking at the leveling thing and looking at overhauling it, and they said it was a long-term project. Which, yeah, I don't think that means we'll announce it later this year. You liked it when each level was special? Yes, of course. I think everyone does. A level is supposed to be special. In a role-playing game, you are supposed to... It's you becoming more powerful. And in World of Warcraft, you don't with each level. And there is a certain difficulty with the way they now have the game in doing that. But at least they need to mark it with something. Even if it's like cosmetic rewards or something. Oh dear, excuse me. But there are things they could do. But it would require them to rethink the way, you know, the whole concept of the classes, the class building, I think. And there's so many different ways they can do it. And I know they don't want to go back to the old talent system, and that's fine, that's fair enough. But they could still do something similar. You know, I favour the artifact weapon system, where you choose your path. So you get a point each, could be level when you're levelling, but you are going to get them all at the end. So it's not like you're making decisions as such. You're only deciding about what route you take, which ones you want first. The next expansion will feel really bad again if we lose power as we level again. Well, you will, because at least you don't have legendaries this time, because that was a real kicker, wasn't it? Was it 117 when we lost all our legendaries? That was bad. But that was a problem with legendaries. You hope they bring back the gem system. As in what iteration? Because it's basically been very different in pretty much each expansion that we've had. Well, for each expansion, because it came in TBC, didn't it? Was it 150 for legendaries? Oh, was it? Okay, I thought it was later than that. Either way, you soon noticed it when it stopped. I feel the need to go and check now. Says I think I've tried to log on to the wrong account. Oh, well, two of you have said it, so you must be right. You don't think the expansion with the game system they have, AP for the neck will get too old if they don't fix the system, even the next expansion won't be. Yeah, well, my issue with them changing this, it's like they haven't changed the basic system. Artifact power is there to try and encourage people to do content that they wouldn't necessarily ordinarily want to do. But also, it's by changing the system. Do you know what? Oh, this is the wrong account. Sorry, I'm paying attention to something else. By changing the system each expansion, it's like there are loads of problems with it at the start because it's a new idea. You haven't properly tested it out. And actually, when players tested it out, you didn't listen to them. So there you go. So then you improve it as the expansion goes on. So then for the next expansion, it's now in a good state. You can carry on building on that. Very much like Mythic Plus Dungeons. Mythic Plus Dungeons were really good. And they kept them. And they added to them. Now, you know, whether those additions people think are good or not, I don't know. There's certainly things to be said for them. But that's what they're able to do. Whereas when they just keep, right, that system that we spent 2 years improving, in the bin, completely new system now. You just keep repeating the same mistakes, don't you? Anyway, you're a vanilla player with Thunder Fury, so you wasn't too impressed when they gave everyone legendaries. I mean, I don't think there is a good legendary system in an MMO. I really don't think any system is good. They're all pretty terrible. So they've tried different versions. Just going to have a look. Yep, I have just verified it is indeed 115. Where am I getting 117 from then? Did I lose something else? 117. Was that the out? Oh God, I've just logged off again. Was that? Oh, I'll check again myself. Anyway, you're in game now. Legendaries. Yeah, I was just logged in game. Yeah, they were up to 150. So it's 116. You lost them. I don't know what I'm thinking about with 117 then. It's I don't know why I got that stuck in my head. But anyway, am I going to start raiding in the summer? No. No. Because what's the point? There's not only are there loads of things I want to do this summer. I'm not going to get my character ready. I refuse to do this shit with the artifact stuff. I really despise the system. I wasn't very keen on it as a raider. I always felt it was something that was put in for casual players to try and force them to play more often so that they're more likely to say subscribed. But in effect, all they've actually done is I can't see anything that finishes at 116, so I was just completely wrong on that. All it's actually is a casual. When I was a casual player, it was a crap system even then because it gives you no incentive. There's no incentive. The incentives are all for raiders, but you don't need to incentivize raiders because they're already subscribed because they want to raid. So I am a conscientious objector on the old artifact system. So I would refuse. And I don't see the point in just trying to raid for 6 weeks anyway. It's no point. So no. I will do other things. I will not be bored this summer. I have lots of projects. I probably have too many projects on. In fact, this Easter that went, I had several projects on. And too many. And then didn't really get a significant amount on any of them. BFA dungeons sucked with Mythic Plus. They didn't really design the dungeons to be Mythic Plus. No, there was an element of that. That is true. Some of the dungeons are a little bit awkward. They're too thematic, aren't they? Rather than suitable for a competitive style of play. Don't I miss raiding? Do you know what? I actually don't, and I thought I would. I did to begin with. You know, when the new raid came out, I did miss raiding. But now, it's like an addiction. I mean, I don't, you know, like say how I would imagine giving up smoking. You know, once you've given it up for a year, you probably don't miss it anymore. I mean, I knew someone who gave up smoking and after a little while, they didn't miss it anymore. They could even, and this was at a time when you could still smoke in the pubs. And he would be in the pub, and there'd be people with us that were smoking, and he'd be fine with it. He'd be all right. He wouldn't be tempted. And I think it's like that, you know. I think, you know, it's out of my system, and I actually don't miss it now. Because I found other things to do. As I was always going to do. I always have things to do. You can't raid at the moment. You miss raiding with your friends. Oh, you see, I didn't really raid with friends. Not that I wasn't friendly with the people I raided with, but they weren't like friends I knew from elsewhere. I joined guilds to raid. On a far too frequent basis as well, if I have to say. I mean, that was a downside. The word downside to raiding, from my personal point of view, is one I from my point of view, was constantly having to change guilds. You know, at least once an expansion, often twice, I would change guilds. That wasn't good. What do I think have been the best add-ons for each expansion? Add-ons. I mean, most of them are awful. Elv UI I like. You know, interface editor. That's a really useful one. Hakili was a massive step up. Hakili was much better than CLC Ret. So that was good. But CLC Ret was good as well. Oh, feature. Oh, you mean from Blizzard's point of view? Oh, well. Well, TBC. Oh, no. What have I done? I've chucked something into my keyboard. Right, let's have a think. What did I most like about TBC? Obviously, I'm not going to say the rating because that wasn't a new feature, was it? Oh, no. I liked the raiding in TBC, but I have to say... Oh, no, I'll tell you what, right? What was a boon, especially as I had an alchemist character then, being able to get the lotus for the flasks. That was a nightmare in vanilla, whereas in TBC, combination of flying and the spawns weren't all that rare. So, yeah, that's a pretty rubbish one, but there you go. That's the best I can say about TBC, I'm afraid. Wrath of the Lich King... I really have only disdain for it, and I know lots of people like it, but from my point of view, it came out with instead of coming out with a bang, it came out with a fart, and I didn't play it. So I can't say anything, even though there are features that, had I carried on playing it, I probably would have appreciated, but as it happens, I didn't. Cataclysm, same sort of thing. I wasn't playing it until right at the end, and I didn't appreciate any of the changes when I came back. There was a massive, massive inflation in stats. They'd introduced Tauren paladins and gnome priests. You know, they had... I don't even know what they tried to do. The 10 and 25 man raid thing. Although, technically that came in Wrath. But in Wrath, 10 man knew its place. It was down there. So, they devalued 25 man in Cataclysm. So, I didn't appreciate that. So I can't say anything for Cataclysm. And I definitely didn't appreciate the restructuring of my precious 1 to 60 content. Hiya, Dan. So the first expansion where they come out, where I can probably say something really good, was Mop. What I very much liked in Mop was the Isle of Thunder. I thought that was a brilliant feature. You know, slowly chipping away at it. And it was a good way of doing what... is in some ways is almost like a community. Like, you felt like you were changing the world without it being changing the world from doing a quest. You know, it felt like it was an actual siege because there was time spent doing it. So that was quite good. And there were some nice features on the Isle of Thunder as well. I was quite happy on the Isle of Thunder. The Claxis stuff was nice too. I like the Claxis storyline. That was quite interesting. Then Warlords of Draenor. Followers. I actually really liked going around getting the followers. There were certain ones I refused to get, like the gnomes, of course. But generally speaking, I quite like the followers. Yeah. The introduction of, you know, getting away from this 10 and 25 man thing, that was a positive thing. I didn't like the fact that they settled on 20 man. They should have settled on 25, but or 30, but they didn't. But the fact that they just stuck to one, that was good. That was a good feature. There weren't too many features in WoD, were they? It's not difficult to pick which wasn't the best one. But I thought followers were nice. Legion, didn't like the artifacts. The whole artifact power system lost the game so many raiders, it's untrue. So I can't say that. Mythic plus dungeons. I don't know. No, Mythic plus dungeons. And BFA... Don't know. BFA. And I'm not saying that as if, oh, BFA is so terrible, that's why I quit, because it's not why I quit. TBC for you flying. Flying double-edged sword, though. It was sort of nice as a little gimmick. The fact that they continued it has caused trouble. But anyway, I honestly, I'm not trying to be awkward. I can't think of anything in BFA that I appreciate as a new feature. I can't think of anything. You've been in the same guild with your friends since Burning Crusade. Well, I suppose if you play with your friends, you probably would be, wouldn't you? You were angry they added Paladins to the Horde. Oh. But anyway. TBC flying and dailies. You appreciate dailies. Dailies are a honey trap for players. They're not good for players. They're there to keep you playing content that you wouldn't ordinarily touch with a barge pole. Mop the farms. The farms were all right, but it was just a chore in the end. It was just tedious. I mean, you didn't have to do it. But and BFA war mode. Oh, now. Yes, okay, war mode. Yeah, I'll go with that. That's good. As someone who hates world PvP in World of Warcraft, war mode is brilliant because it means I don't have to engage in it. Yeah, I stand corrected. I can think of something I like in BFA. There we go. You liked WoD when you couldn't fly. Is that weird? No, I liked it when you couldn't fly. I like the game when you can't fly. And I know people will just say, well, why don't you just not fly? It's not the... There's no point when everyone else is flying. You know, everyone else then has a competitive advantage if you don't, just out of spite. Down with crawling like bugs and you're ecstatic about flying. Alright. But anyway... I mean, it's there anyway. They let the genie out of the bottle. They never should have tried to stop it. And I think, to be fair, I think they've come up with a reasonable compromise that you play for a certain amount of time. I do probably think that they could introduce flying earlier than they do. You know, maybe instead of 0.2, 0.15 would be enough. Because then that's like 1.5 patches later. That's probably okay then to introduce it. And given that the 1.5 patch didn't really have that much, maybe at least giving people flying might have been a good time to do it, I think, for BFA. So... But you miss... There's so many things you just miss. I don't... At no point... I mean, someone was asking earlier on, you know, when I'm playing ESO, are there things that are in WoW that you naturally think to yourself, oh, you know, this is better in WoW? There's not a lot, I have to say, as a casual player. But never once have I thought to myself, if only I could fly. You know, even I was streaming a couple of days ago, just getting some sky shards in a zone where it's very tricky to get around sometimes. And I didn't think to myself, oh, I wish I could fly. You know, because there's no need. It's engaging when you're trying to find something, trying to work out a way to get to it. That's a form of engagement there. You just hit level 50 on your neck. I don't know what I'm on. I'm fairly confident it's not even 20. So, actually it might be 20. I don't know what it is. Certainly not 50. And it never will be. What if they added combat to flying that players can't use flying to skip past stuff? Well, you could still, even if you had combat flying, you could still skip stuff by flying. Random PvP battles were awesome. It's just really just brawls. They're not really battles. I've never seen anything that looks... I mean, Wintergrasp tried to pretend to be a battle, but it wasn't. It wasn't even a very good siege. There has never been anything even close to a battle in World of Warcraft. In terms of the game, playing it. And that annoys me because I enjoy that. If you have like PvP, a large scale battle type PvP, then that's fine. The best Blizzard seem to be able to do is a mock siege, a little thing that almost looks like a siege. Raid 9 Forge isn't a battle, it's a brawl. It's just a big one, it's just a punch up. A battle has lines and coordination and units. You guys are going that way to take those on and you're going that way to take those on. And coordinated. And that's not what raiding even a city is. It's just a large scale pub fight. Talking about war mode, you only have it on with your alliance and you had to do the weekly kill horde last week. While doing it, a horde player got on his alliance and told you all to F off. Well, they should turn war mode off then. What? I don't understand people. Like, it used to annoy me when I first started having to go to PvP realms to be able to get into raid guilds. And yeah, it annoyed me, not on my main character, because anyone tried to beat that up, they got beaten up. But, you know, when you're on your low level outs, just leveling up, you don't need someone high level coming along and beating you up. Where's the fun in that? It's just pathetic. And, you know, those people must still wet their beds, seriously. If their life is so devoid of achievement, they need to do that. So that used to annoy me. But now we've got war mode. We can just say, I don't like that type of content. I don't agree with non-consensual PvP. I'm turning it off, which is what I did. Don't get people complaining. And complaining to the point where they log off and maybe even create a character just to whisper you and abuse you. I hope you reported them. Assuming they use the words you've suggested. So, I don't get people. You get flying after running around forever, so you're not missing any stupid degrees and tricky rocks. Everyone used Whistle and Goblin Glider. I didn't. I use Whistle quite a lot. Whistle's actually a good feature. You know, I think if I wasn't going to say, I would still say Mythic Plus Dungeons was a better feature of Legion, but the Whistle was a pretty good feature. I'll tell you what was an absolutely appalling feature though in Legion. For the Hunter, you used to have that feathers thing, didn't you? And it'd transport you to like an eagle nest or something. It was never the closest one. It was always a stupid one it put you in that was utterly pointless. But anyway, that's what you said to him. Turn off war mode then. I don't know with some people. It was in the desert zone. The desert... No. If he's Horde, the desert zone is a levelling zone. So he could have been level 110. It doesn't matter anyway. Like, if you put war mode on, you are inviting people to pick a fight with you. That's what it's for. It's not, you know, it's perfectly consensual. Anyway, whatever. Leave them to it. Snake. If it was doing a world quest, it's very likely his level cap, isn't it? Anyway, he seems to have been quite vocal about what he was doing. I wouldn't worry about it. I would, if they actually swore, if they were actually abusive, I would just reported them to, and then that would have been that. It serves the dual purpose of reporting them and then effectively blocking them for the time being anyway. Still keep checking to see if anyone's... I suppose there's no point. Normally you would ask the question, wouldn't you, at this point in a thingy, will limit re-clear, but I don't suppose there's any point, is there? One boss. That's not going to get them much, I guess. So I suppose they just snaffle their Mythic Plus cash and straight back in. It was just funny that he has a chance to turn it off to save trouble, yet he decided to log off and switch factions to tell us off. Yeah, I know. It's, I mean that is really just being entitled, because the whole purpose. Yes, you're incentivized in PvE to put it on, but the whole point of that incentive is supposed to be for the inconvenience of occasionally having your ball shot off. You think Limit are going to kill it tonight or tomorrow, do you? I mean, at this point, there's no longer, I suppose, any advantage, because it's not like they have the option of re-clearing. Well, they do have the option, I guess. But, yeah, unless someone's going to say something different, I can't see that one boss is going to be worth doing it for. But, I mean, they've got to... You can't have a 2-boss raid that lasts for like 10 days, can you? That's just ludicrous. And it is a tricky one. As I say, I'm not opposed to 2-boss raids. I think they're, I think it's fine. But it's just awkward, because you've got, you've got to make it difficult so there's an actual race. It's only 2 bosses. But anyway, we shall see what we shall see. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how much kudos there will be on this one. It may be that it's just a consolation round, even if Limit do get it, and that what they really need to set their sights on is Ashara, who for the first time I've actually remembered not to call Lady Vash, because I keep calling her Lady Vash for some reason. Also, both factions have the same weekly PvP quest, so he knew he was going to get it coming into the zone. Assuming they even check that. They may only just put it on purely for the PvE bonus, but they still understand what that means. Ian said that they didn't design Mythic raids for cutting edge guilds. Clearly this isn't true for the latest raid. No, it's not true for any raid. They do. They absolutely do. Well, I suppose it depends what you mean by design. They certainly tune it. They don't want the raid being bowled over quickly. They definitely tune it for the top raids. In fact, if Ian Hazacosta said that, and I forget certain things he said, then he was blatantly lying. Because he said, if you remember, when he was doing his debrief after Tomb of Sargeras, he said that the reason Kill Jaden was tuned so high was because their internal testers, they thought, oh, the internal testers are able to do this. They just, basically, they didn't think their internal testers were quality enough when they were. And they thought, oh, if these guys can do it, Method will just piss all over it. We'd better make it way harder. And that's why Kill Jaden was, what was it Sko said? Mathematically impossible or something. So that is absolute rubbish. Now, if he just means purely in terms of mechanics, sort of, but at the same time, because they do tune for the cutting edge guilds to begin with the intention of nerfing it soon after, in some way, you know, that's part and parcel of the whole thing. So no, that's nonsense. There's only a +5 item level for doing a reclear, yeah, and it's one boss, isn't it? So it's not worth it, is it? Plus the items have a great effect that are particularly good at, but only so many people are going to get them though. Unless of course they thought they could bowl it over quickly. The first boss, I guess. Don't know. But no, if Ian Hazakostas is saying that they don't tune, and he may have done, it may have been one of those things that I rolled my eyes at the time and forgot, then that's just a lie. But even that doesn't make it stick in my mind. He tells so many lies. That's another disappointing thing about him. I can understand, obviously you've got to, you know, you represent your company, and sometimes that means being a little bit like, the sort of dishonesty I'll accept is something like, you know, a blue poster like a GM, what do you call them? Community manager, sorry, on the forums. When someone's criticising a particular feature, a community manager says, actually, I really like it because of this, 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 and this. And you just think to yourself, they may be telling the truth, but you know that they're absolutely not going to say, oh, yeah, that feature's a load of rubbish. I keep telling them that, but they won't listen to me. Because it's not your job to do that. In fact, it's specifically your job not to do that. That sort of dishonesty I'm okay with, because you're basically doing your job and presenting your company's product in the best possible light and trying to convince people of it. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But, you know, there's so many things he just blatantly lies about. And it's disappointing. But anyway, we will. I mean, it can't last till the weekend, can it? This boss, especially if it's had 2 nerfs to it. And as those nerfs are both of the form of this thing doesn't happen at the same time as this thing, and this thing doesn't happen at the same time as this thing as often, and that's how they make fights more difficult these days. Because, like I said before, most of the mechanics are, you've seen them before. They're just changed cosmetically. What makes them challenging is combining mechanics together so they happen at the same time. Particularly mechanics where it's like, to deal with this mechanic you have to do this thing, and to deal with this mechanic means you have to do this thing that's the complete opposite. So like having 2 mechanics at once, one of which means you need to stay by the boss, and the other which means you need to be as far away from the boss as possible. You know, it's like having to do 2 completely separate things. It's like, and that's what makes it difficult. That little split second it causes you where you hesitate because you've got 2 things to do and you don't, at that time it's like, oh no, and then you don't do anything. It did have a buff last Friday. It had a buff, did it? They buffed it. Wow, what? Were they a bit worried it was going a bit too quickly? I would have no objection to a 2 boss raid going down before the first weekend. I mean, that would seem okay to me. As long as it doesn't go down before the European guilds have had a fair crack at it. That, you know. So as long as it lasts a few days, there's only 2 bosses at the end of the day. And they don't need to keep the rest of the mortal raiding world stuck on them forever. Because it's disappointing for all mythic raiders, I would have thought. You know, that you'd be a mythic raider and after a week you haven't killed any bosses. I mean, you'd sort of get away with that as long as you'd expect to kill them the next week. But on this level of difficulty, you might imagine there's even the top few hundred. The top few hundred is still decent in mythic raiding terms. That might not get even 1 mythic kill for several weeks. That's got to be something that puts people off and risks. You know, we talk about the sort of things that can cause people to give up raiding. And although I'll keep saying that giving up just because a boss takes a lot of wipes is not really the mythic raider mentality, most mythic raiders don't have what I would call the mythic raider mentality. And you have to accept that. And so with that acceptance, I think it's a bit strange making it too difficult. Unless, of course, they plan on savagely nerfing it as soon as like 5 guilds have killed it or something. You know, truly savagely nerfing it. Like, they could nerf the first boss, couldn't they? They could easily do that. So her damage ability went from 300% damage to 1,000%. Was it not killing enough mages? And given the sort of mages that I'm thinking of, I wouldn't disapprove of that, I have to say. But anyway, let's hope it gets killed this week. And then I suppose the interviews will happen then, and then we can find out what they all thought of it. Hopefully Method won't be, if they do miss out this time. I know they've already pointed out the fact that MDIs, but hopefully they won't be ungracious. I don't think they will be. But obviously, the next big test is Shara. But anyway, we're sort of coming towards the end there. I'll sort of call it here because I've still got many more things to do as well. I've still got more painting to do for my tournament this weekend, actually. So thank you very much for coming on, everyone. I will be doing some more impromptu streams from next week with the ESO, and but not that, you know, after. I reckon next week work should get a lot easier. I hope. Basically, I've got one big job to do this week, which requires me still bringing stuff, a little bit of stuff home, and then, assuming it all goes all right, next week should be relatively relaxed. In other words, I should be able to go to work, do work, come home, not do work, which will be great. But anyway, so read the last couple of sentences here. You say, sorry, the first boss got that buff. Okay, so it was the first boss that was. Oh, thank goodness for that. Second boss was to target ranged players more. So going with lots of range didn't help. Okay. And a final one. A lot of heroic guilds often dip their toe into Mythic raiding by killing first few bosses on Mythic via overgearing. Yes. Not sure this will happen this time. No, it won't. No. And you're right about that. That is definitely something that has... Legion massively increased the number of so-called Mythic raiders. Let's don't be churlish about it. If you've killed a Mythic boss, you're a Mythic raider. Massively increased the number of Mythic raiders, and it did it by exactly what you've just said there, allowing them to with Titan Fortune outgear the first few bosses so much that even, you know, having many clueless people in your raid, you still somehow bowled it over, and then they would get completely stuck, and then that would be that. But you know, so yeah, for this raid, not so much. But then again, you might imagine that those people are still on Battle for Desire Law Mythic, wouldn't they? So it's not like, you know, they could just consider this. Yeah, I would think those sort of guilds will just kill these bosses on Heroic and be done with it, wouldn't you? Not even worry about the Mythic stuff, maybe. You know, Battle for Desire Law, do that. Do that. They've got choices. It's nice to have choices. But anyway, I will love you and leave you. So thanks for coming on. Until next time, I'll see you later.